The sun was shining brightly over the city, and in one of the most luxurious mansions anyone had ever seen, a billionaire was preparing for an event unlike any other. People had gathered from all over to watch and be part of something that promised excitement, amusement, and a test of skill that no one had ever seen before. The billionaire, a man known for his wealth, power, and sharp mind, loved to challenge people in strange and unusual ways. He enjoyed watching others struggle, fail, and sometimes succeed, but he rarely admitted when anyone surprised him. Today, he decided he would offer a challenge so bold that everyone would remember it for years. The crowd inside the grand hall murmured with curiosity and excitement, some whispering among themselves about what the challenge might be, while others laughed and joked, thinking no one could ever succeed. The billionaire strode into the center of the hall, dressed in an expensive suit, his presence commanding attention. His smile was wide, but his eyes held a sparkle of mischief, and as he raised his hands, the room fell silent. "I have a challenge for anyone brave enough to attempt it," he said, his voice loud and confident. "If you can heal me of my problem, my special condition, or perform what I think is impossible, I will give you $1 million. The audience gasped, shocked at the enormous sum, and some laughed nervously, thinking no one could ever do it. Among the crowd, many were young, some older, some confident, others unsure. People whispered about whether this challenge was real or just a stunt. But in the back of the hall, a young black boy quietly made his way through, unnoticed by most. He was not dressed in fine clothes or fancy shoes. He looked like an ordinary boy, and yet there was something calm and confident in his eyes, something that suggested he believed in himself, even when no one else would. He had heard of this billionaire before, of course, and knew stories about his challenges, but he did not care about the money. He cared about showing his skill, proving to himself and others that talent and determination could succeed against arrogance and doubt. The billionaire looked around the crowd, scanning faces, and when his gaze landed on the boy, he laughed loudly, a rich, arrogant sound that echoed through the hall. You want to try?" He chuckled, amusement dripping from every word. "I offer $1 million, and you think you could do it?" The audience joined in the laughter, pointing and whispering, "Who does he think he is?" Some even shook their heads in disbelief, certain the boy would fail like everyone else. The boy did not respond with words. He just stepped forward, slowly and confidently, keeping his eyes on the billionaire. The room grew quiet, and the laughter began to fade, replaced with curiosity. Even the billionaire paused, his interest slightly piqued by the boy's calm, almost fearless demeanor. "Very well," the billionaire said, trying to hide a hint of doubt. "Step forward and show us what you can do." The boy nodded silently and moved closer, the polished marble floor reflecting the light of the chandeliers above. The crowd leaned forward, trying to get a better view. Some held their breath. Others exchanged glances, silently wondering if this young boy could really accomplish what seemed impossible. The atmosphere was electric, filled with anticipation, tension, and excitement. As the boy prepared to demonstrate his skill, small details became noticeable. The billionaire, used to seeing nervous faces, fidgeting hands, and shaking knees, was now confronted with a boy standing tall and focused, completely in control. He did not rush, did not panic, and did not show even a hint of fear. His calm presence seemed to shift the energy in the room. People could feel that something extraordinary was about to happen. The billionaire's laughter had disappeared entirely, replaced with curiosity, perhaps even a little worry. He had offered challenges before, but this boy seemed different. There was a quiet power about him, something that suggested he was not just another participant, but someone with a talent so rare it could change everything. Everyone waited in silence, the tension building. The billionaire leaned back in his chair slightly, folding his arms, trying to appear casual, but his eyes betrayed his interest. The boy took a deep breath, ready to take on the challenge, and the room seemed to hold its collective breath with him. This was more than a contest of skill or money. It was a moment where courage, talent, and determination would face off against wealth, arrogance, and disbelief. Little did anyone know, the next few seconds would change the way the billionaire and the world viewed the boy forever. The challenge had officially begun, and the stage was set for something incredible. The young boy had stepped forward, and though the billionaire's laughter had faded, whispers still floated through the crowd. Some doubted him completely, while others began to wonder if there was something special about him. The boy, however, was not thinking about the crowd, the whispers, or the money. He was thinking about what he had learned over the years, about the countless hours of practice, the failures, the challenges, and the quiet moments where no one was watching. His talent was not something that could be learned overnight. It had been honed in small, unnoticed steps, moments that had shaped him into someone patient, determined, and precise. He carried himself with quiet confidence, and though his hands were small, they held a skill far beyond what anyone in the room could imagine. As he waited for the billionaire to speak, memories of his past flashed through his mind. He remembered the early mornings, waking before sunrise to practice when the rest of the world was still asleep. He remembered the days when people laughed at him, telling him he would never succeed, calling him foolish, telling him to give up, but he had never listened. He had always believed that true skill and determination could break through any wall. That belief had carried him through every failure and every disappointment, and now, in this grand hall, it would be put to the ultimate test. The billionaire, growing impatient, waved his hand dramatically, trying to regain the attention of the crowd. "Well," he said, his voice sharp, "are you going to try, or will you waste everyone's time?" Some of the guests laughed again, thinking the boy would bow out, but he did not. He simply nodded, a small, quiet gesture that spoke louder than any words. The crowd shifted in their seats, leaning forward, sensing that something remarkable was about to happen. No one knew what to expect. Not even the billionaire, who had grown used to seeing people fail. He had faced many challenges before, and he knew that most people would panic, hesitate, or make mistakes. Yet this boy was calm, collected, and focused. His eyes were steady, his posture confident, and his hands moved with a natural ease that suggested he had complete control over what he was about to do. There was no hesitation, no doubt, no fear, only readiness. The boy thought about his family, the sacrifices they had made, the struggles they had endured, and the encouragement they had given him even when times were hard. They had always believed in him, even when no one else did. Their faith gave him strength, and it reminded him that this challenge was bigger than just money or fame. It was about proving that skill, courage, and heart could succeed against even the greatest obstacles. As he stepped closer to the billionaire, the crowd became silent. The murmurs stopped, replaced by an intense anticipation that hung in the air like electricity. Everyone could feel that this moment was different. This boy was not just another participant. He carried something rare, something extraordinary, something that could leave everyone stunned. The billionaire leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. "Show me," he said, his voice quieter now, almost hesitant. The boy nodded again, his calm determination unshaken. He took a deep breath and focused all his energy on the task ahead. This was the moment where skill met opportunity, where preparation met chance, and where courage faced doubt. The entire hall waited, frozen in suspense. As seconds stretched into what felt like minutes, every eye followed his movements, every ear listened. For the first sound, every heart beat faster with curiosity and excitement. In that moment, no one cared about appearances, wealth, or social status. Not the billionaire, not the audience, not anyone in the room. All that mattered was what the boy could do, his ability, his focus, and his courage became the center of attention. Something ordinary had stepped forward to do something extraordinary, and the world was about to watch it happen. The boy stood quietly in front of the billionaire, his small frame almost lost among the crowd of expensive suits and glittering jewelry. The billionaire leaned back in his chair, still trying to mask his curiosity with a half smile, expecting the boy to falter, to hesitate, to fail, but the boy showed no fear, no doubt, only calm confidence, his eyes focused, his hands steady, and his breathing slow, almost as if he were in another world, a world where failure did not exist, where skill and determination were enough to overcome anything. The audience held their breath, leaning forward in unison. Their chatter and laughter had disappeared, replaced by an electric silence. Everyone sensed that this moment was different. Something extraordinary was about to happen. The boy looked up at the billionaire, and for the first time, the arrogance in the man's eyes wavered slightly. He had faced challenges before, but he had never seen someone so young, so ordinary in appearance, radiate such quiet power. Then the boy moved, slowly at first, letting the tension build. His hands reached forward, but instead of rushing, he performed each action with precise control. Each movement was deliberate, each step measured. The billionaire's confident smile began to fade, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. He leaned forward, watching closely, unable to believe what he was seeing. Something about the boy's calmness, his focus, his skill, was disarming, as if he were performing in a world the billionaire could not understand. Seconds passed, yet it felt like an eternity to everyone in the room. The crowd was frozen, eyes wide, hearts pounding. No one dared blink. No one wanted to miss the moment. The boy's every movement was perfect, effortless, and shockingly fast. He performed the impossible, completing the task in a way that seemed almost magical. It was not just speed, but mastery, a combination of intelligence, intuition, and skill that left everyone speechless. The billionaire opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His laughter, which had been loud and mocking just moments before, vanished completely. He could not deny what he had just witnessed. The boy had done the impossible in mere seconds, achieving in moments what no one thought could be done. The crowd erupted, first in disbelief, then in applause. The noise was deafening, people cheering, clapping, and whispering to one another in amazement. Some were crying, some were laughing. All were stunned. The boy did not smile or boast. He simply stood there, calm and composed, as if what he had done was natural, as if everyone else was the one who had been wrong to doubt him. His eyes met the billionaire's, and in that silent moment, the arrogant man realized something profound. Wealth and power could command respect, but they could not create skill, they could not replace talent, and they could not prepare someone for the extraordinary. Only dedication, focus, and courage could do that. And this boy had all three in abundance. The billionaire leaned back, finally speaking, but his voice was quieter, almost respectful. How did you do that?" he asked, still unable to hide the shock. The boy shook his head slightly, not out of arrogance, but out of humility. "I practiced," he said simply. "I believed I could, and I didn't stop." Those words, simple and honest, carried a weight far greater than the $1 million prize. They spoke of determination, perseverance, and the courage to face challenges when everyone else doubts you. The crowd continued to cheer, and even those who had mocked him moments ago now stared in awe. The boy had not only completed the challenge, but he had shattered the arrogance and disbelief of one of the richest men in the world. It was a moment no one would forget, a story that would be told for years, a reminder that true ability cannot be measured by age, appearance, or status. Only skill, courage, and heart mattered. And this boy had all of them in the most extraordinary way. The billionaire sat frozen, his eyes wide, his mouth slightly open, struggling to comprehend what he had just witnessed. The boy had done the impossible, and no amount of wealth, influence, or power could explain it. For the first time in years, the billionaire felt something unfamiliar. Humility, a quiet shock that settled deep in his chest. He had laughed, mocked, and underestimated this boy, convinced that money and authority would always put him above everyone else. Yet now, in front of his eyes, the boy had achieved what seemed unimaginable, and the arrogance that had always defined him felt strangely empty. The crowd around them was buzzing, people talking, cheering, and pointing, but the billionaire barely noticed. He was caught in a whirlwind of thought, trying to process what had just happened. He had faced countless challenges before, had tested and defeated the best, yet none had ever stunned him like this. None had moved him to reconsider what he believed about talent and ability. The boy's calm confidence, his precision, and his quiet strength were qualities that money could never buy. That realization hit the billionaire harder than any loss. And for the first time, he felt truly human, vulnerable even. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, staring at the boy as if seeing him for the first time. "Tell me," he said quietly, almost to himself. Where did this come from? How did you do it? The boy looked up, meeting his gaze without fear, without hesitation. I practiced, he said simply. I believed I could, and I didn't stop. Those words, simple yet powerful, echoed in the hall, carrying more weight than the $1 million challenge. The billionaire realized that this was more than skill. It was dedication, it was resilience, and it was courage, qualities that no money, fame, or privilege could ever guarantee. Memories flashed through the billionaire's mind. Moments when he had relied on wealth to solve problems. When he had thought power could create results. When he had laughed at others who dared to try. He felt a sting of shame, mixed with admiration, for the boy had achieved in seconds what he could not. Despite his fortune and influence, for the first time, he understood that true greatness was not something you bought. It was something earned, fought for, and nurtured over time. The audience noticed the change. Watching as the billionaire shifted in his seat, his arrogance melted away. Replaced by genuine awe, he extended a hand, slowly and carefully, as if reaching out to a new world he had never known. You have my respect, he said, his voice sincere, and my admiration. The boy nodded respectfully, understanding that this acknowledgement meant more than any prize could. It was recognition from someone who had underestimated him, someone who had thought power and wealth were the ultimate measure of value. Even the other spectators felt the shift. They had come expecting entertainment, drama, maybe a failure to laugh at. But what they witnessed was far greater. It was a lesson in humility, in recognizing talent where it might not be expected, in understanding that courage and skill can come from the most unlikely places. The billionaire, once the center of attention and control, now watched as the boy commanded the room with nothing but his talent and quiet confidence. It was a moment that would be remembered, a story that would inspire countless people for years to come. Slowly, the billionaire rose, a gesture of respect and acknowledgement. The applause grew louder, more heartfelt, as the room recognized the boy's achievement. The man who had laughed moments ago was now humbled, transformed, and surprisingly inspired. He had seen the true meaning of skill, of perseverance, and of heart, and it had left him forever changed. The boy had not only completed the challenge, he had altered the perspective of a man who had believed he was untouchable, showing that true greatness does not belong to the wealthy or powerful, but to those who dedicate themselves fully to their craft. The billionaire extended his hand again, this time with a small smile. Well done, he said. I misjudged you, and I have learned something valuable today. The boy accepted the acknowledgement with quiet dignity, knowing that this moment was bigger than the challenge, bigger than the money. It was a turning point, a reminder that skill, courage, and perseverance could break down barriers, change minds, and earn respect in ways no wealth ever could. And in that hall, with the crowd buzzing and the lights shining bright, it was clear to everyone that the boy had won far more than the $1 million. He had won hearts, admiration, and the understanding that true greatness comes from within. The room erupted into applause as the billionaire finally reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. The crowd cheered louder, some jumping to their feet, others clapping so hard their hands hurt. The young boy, calm as ever, stood still, his eyes on the billionaire, not the money, not the applause. He had never sought fame or fortune. He had sought the challenge, the chance to prove himself. And now the result of his dedication was being recognized in a way he had never imagined. The billionaire, still trying to recover from the shock, handed the envelope to the boy, his hand shaking slightly, as if even he could not believe what was happening. You have earned this, he said quietly, not just because of the challenge, but because of your skill, your courage, and your focus. The words were sincere, different from the mocking tone he had used just minutes ago. The boy accepted the envelope with both hands, nodding respectfully. Thank you, he said simply, his voice steady, calm, and full of dignity. His humility made the moment even more powerful, and the crowd felt it, sensing that this was not just about money, but about respect, recognition, and overcoming doubt. People in the room whispered to each other, some shaking their heads in amazement, others smiling with tears in their eyes. They had witnessed something rare, a moment when talent, determination, and heart triumphed over arrogance and disbelief. The billionaire, once the center of attention, now looked on quietly, watching as the boy's presence filled the room with energy, admiration, and inspiration. He had learned a lesson he would never forget, that skill, perseverance, and courage cannot be measured by age, appearance, or status. Journalists and guests crowded around, pulling out cameras and microphones, eager to capture the boy's story. But he remained composed, answering questions with clarity and humility. "I practiced every day," he said. "I never gave up, even when people doubted me. Even when it seemed impossible, I kept trying, and today it worked." His words resonated with everyone in the room, inspiring parents, young people, and even the wealthy and powerful. It was a story that showed that no matter who you are or where you come from, determination and focus could achieve extraordinary results. The billionaire, who had been silent for a moment, finally spoke again, his tone softer, more reflective. "You've changed the way I see things," he admitted. "I've always believed that wealth and power give you the upper hand. But today I see that true strength comes from within, from dedication, skill, and heart." Those words carried weight, and the boy nodded, understanding that he had done more than just complete a challenge. He had opened the mind of someone who had believed himself untouchable, and that was far more valuable than any envelope of money. The crowd continued to cheer, and slowly, the energy in the room shifted from excitement to inspiration. People began talking about the boy's journey, imagining the countless hours he had spent honing his skill, the sacrifices he had made, and the courage it took to face a billionaire and succeed. They were inspired to believe in themselves, to pursue their own dreams, and to understand that no obstacle was too great if you worked for it with focus and heart. The boy glanced at the envelope once more, then set it down. It was not about the money. It was about what it represented, the acknowledgement that effort, talent, and courage were always noticed, even in a world that often overlooked them. And as the applause continued, he felt a sense of fulfillment, not from wealth, but from knowing that he had proven something important, not just to the billionaire, but to everyone watching. In that moment, the billionaire extended his hand again, and this time it was not for a challenge, but for respect. "You have earned not just the reward, but my admiration," he said, his voice steady, filled with sincerity. The boy shook his hand, and the room felt the energy shift completely. What had started as a simple challenge had become a story of inspiration, humility, and triumph. One that would be remembered long after the applause faded. The young boy had not just completed the task. He had changed minds, inspired hearts, and shown the world that true greatness comes from courage, skill, and determination, not wealth, status, or appearance. The moment the young boy received the billionaire's reward did not stay contained within the walls of the grand hall. Word spread quickly, faster than anyone could have imagined. Social media lit up with videos, photos, and stories of the boy who had done the impossible in seconds. News outlets picked it up, calling it a story of courage, skill, and determination. People all over the city, the country, and even the world were talking about it. Some could hardly believe it had happened. Others were inspired to believe that no matter who they were, extraordinary achievements were possible. In schools, children whispered to each other, sharing the story with wide eyes and excitement. Teachers used it as an example of focus, perseverance, and talent, showing that practice and belief in oneself could create incredible results. Parents told their kids that the boy was proof that they should never give up, even when others doubted them. And among young people facing challenges, struggling to find confidence, his story became a symbol of hope, a reminder that greatness could come from anyone, anywhere, no matter how small or ordinary they seemed. Even adults felt the impact. Many who had long relied on status, wealth, or connections realized that real skill, dedication, and courage mattered more than any amount of power. The billionaire himself became a talking point, not just for his wealth, but for his humility in admitting that he had been wrong. People admired him for acknowledging the boy's talent, for recognizing that greatness was earned, not inherited. The story sparked conversations about fairness, opportunity, and the value of nurturing talent. inspiring countless individuals to pursue their own dreams with renewed determination. The boy, meanwhile, remained humble and grounded. Despite the sudden attention and fame, he continued to focus on his practice, his skills, and his growth. He did not boast. He did not seek the spotlight. Instead, he shared advice quietly, encouraging others to believe in themselves, to work hard, and to never give up. His story became a lesson for those who had once laughed or doubted him, showing that success was not just about winning a challenge, but about perseverance, courage, and staying true to oneself. Schools and community centers began inviting him to speak, to demonstrate his talent, and to inspire others. His calm confidence, his story of overcoming doubt and skepticism, became a beacon of hope for anyone who had been told they could not succeed. Videos of his challenge went viral, reaching millions of people, spreading the message that determination and focus could break barriers, transform lives, and even humble the most arrogant of people. Even the billionaire felt the ripple effect, realizing that the boy had done more than complete a challenge. He had changed perceptions, inspired millions, and reminded the world of the value of skill, heart, and courage. The man who had once laughed now became a supporter of the boy's journey, using his influence to amplify the story, encouraging others to recognize talent wherever it existed, and to never underestimate those who might seem ordinary at first glance. The boy's story reached corners of the world that neither he nor anyone else could have imagined. People facing difficulties, doubt, and discrimination saw themselves in him, finding hope and courage in his actions. Teachers, parents, and mentors used the story as an example of what can happen when talent meets hard work, when determination faces skepticism, and when courage stands firm in the face of doubt. The impact was not just about the $1 million prize, not about fame, but about inspiring others to believe that they could rise above limitations, no matter how impossible they seemed. And slowly, quietly, in homes, schools, and offices, in cities, towns, and villages, the story took root. People began to try harder, practice longer, and believe more strongly in themselves. The young boy's actions had created a ripple, a wave of hope and motivation that could not be contained. It was the beginning of a movement, one that showed that true talent, courage, and heart could change lives far beyond a single moment. That greatness was not limited to wealth or status, but belonged to those who dared to believe in themselves. After the viral story spread across the world, the young boy's life began to change in ways he could never have imagined. Suddenly, doors that had once seemed permanently closed started to open. Invitations poured in from schools, organizations, and even companies wanting to meet him, learn from him, or give him opportunities to grow. But the boy remained humble, remembering the years of struggle, practice, and patience that had brought him here. He knew that talent alone was not enough. It had to be paired with focus, hard work, and humility, and he carried that understanding with him into every new opportunity. The billionaire, still amazed by what had happened, took a special interest in him, offering mentorship, resources, and support. But it was not just about the money or the fame. The billionaire had learned a powerful lesson about true skill, and he wanted to help nurture the boy's potential, guiding him to develop it even further. He wanted the world to see that greatness could come from unexpected places, and that talent and determination deserved recognition and support. People everywhere continued to be inspired by the boy's story, and that inspiration soon turned into concrete opportunities. Scholarships were offered, workshops organized, and media outlets wanted to feature him. But what mattered most to the boy was not the attention. It was the chance to grow, to improve, and to use his skill to make a positive difference. The moment he had faced the billionaire's challenge had become a turning point, not just for him, but for everyone who heard about it. The boy's family, who had supported him quietly through hardships, watched in awe and pride. They had always believed in him, even when no one else did, and now their faith was rewarded. The boy made sure to remain grounded, treating his family with respect and gratitude, never letting the attention and praise change who he was. He understood that true success was not measured in money or fame, but in character, courage, and the ability to inspire others. As he began to travel, meet new people, and share his story, the boy realized the power of his experience. He saw young people who doubted themselves find courage, adults who had given up find hope, and communities who had never believed in their own potential start to dream bigger. Each new connection, each new smile, and each new story of inspiration reminded him why he had worked so hard and why he had never given up. Even the billionaire watched from afar, amazed at the ripple effect the boy had created, realizing that sometimes the smallest actions, performed with dedication and heart, could change countless lives. Opportunities came in many forms: mentorship programs, invitations to speak at conferences, collaborations with organizations that promoted education and talent, and even partnerships with other skilled individuals who admired his determination. The boy never sought these opportunities for personal gain, but to help others see that talent and courage could triumph over doubt, that even the most ordinary-looking person could accomplish extraordinary things. With every step forward, the boy inspired more people. His journey became a beacon of hope for anyone who had been told they were too young, too small, too ordinary to succeed. People everywhere began sharing their own stories of perseverance, motivated by his example. And slowly, the world began to see the truth. Greatness is not determined by wealth, appearance, or status, but by courage, dedication, and heart. And as the boy looked back at how far he had come, from a quiet, determined youth in a crowded hall to someone whose story had touched millions, he realized something profound. The challenge had not just tested him, it had changed the world around him, opened doors for countless others, and reminded everyone, including the billionaire, that skill, patience, and belief in oneself were the most powerful tools anyone could have. The boy's life had transformed, but he remained the same at heart, humble, focused, and ready to face the next challenge, knowing that what mattered most was not what he achieved for himself, but the inspiration he created for others. His journey was far from over. But one thing was clear: he had already changed the world, one act of courage, skill, and determination at a time. Time passed, and the young boy's story continued to inspire people all over the world. He had traveled to schools, universities, and community centers, sharing his journey, teaching others about the power of belief, focus, and perseverance. Every place he went, people listened with wide eyes, hanging on his every word. They were captivated not only by what he had done, but by the quiet courage and humility with which he carried himself. The challenge that had begun as a single moment in a luxurious hall had turned into a movement, touching hearts and minds across continents. The billionaire, who had once laughed at him, now became one of his strongest supporters. Using his influence, wealth, and connections, he helped the boy reach opportunities that would have been impossible otherwise. Yet despite all the fame, attention, and reward, the boy never let it change who he was. He remained grounded, remembering the years of struggle, practice, and self-belief that had brought him here. He knew that recognition and success were fleeting, but the ability to inspire others and leave a lasting impact was forever. People began to see him as more than just a boy who had completed a challenge. He became a symbol of hope, a reminder that greatness could come from anyone, anywhere, regardless of background, wealth, or status. Children who had once doubted themselves began to dream bigger. Adults who had given up on their goals found the courage to try again. And communities that had been overlooked or dismissed began to celebrate talent and determination in new ways. The ripple effect he had started grew stronger every day, and his story became a part of countless lives, inspiring change and belief in the impossible. The boy's own life continued to grow and transform, but he never sought the spotlight. He focused on learning, improving, and using his skill to help others. He mentored young people, encouraged them to practice, and reminded them that failure was not the end, but a step toward improvement. Every student, every listener, every person who had doubted themselves found hope in his example. And through all of it, the boy remembered the moment in the hall when the billionaire had laughed, the seconds that had changed everything, the recognition that had validated not just his skill, but his determination. One day, standing before a new audience, he reflected on his journey, the challenges, the practice, the doubt, and the triumph. He spoke not only about winning the challenge, but about the lessons learned along the way. Talent is nothing without effort, he told them. Courage is nothing without belief, and success is nothing without humility. No matter who you are or where you come from, you can achieve greatness if you dedicate yourself fully, believe in yourself, and never give up. His words resonated, moving people to tears, laughter, and hope. The story that began with a single challenge had become a universal lesson in resilience and determination. Even the billionaire would sometimes reflect on that day. Realizing that his own perspective had changed, he had learned that true value was not measured in wealth or power, but in skill, courage, and character, and he knew that supporting the boy had not only helped the young talent grow, but it also inspired millions of people to believe in themselves. That one act of humility and recognition had multiplied into a legacy far greater than any fortune he had ever possessed. The boy continued to move forward, achieving things he had never imagined, but he never forgot the lesson of that day. Greatness is earned, belief can overcome doubt, and humility and courage are more valuable than applause, money, or recognition. His story became a guiding light for anyone facing challenges, reminding them that no obstacle was too great if met with focus, heart, and determination. And in every life he touched, his example proved that one person, one act of courage, and one moment of skill could inspire the world. As the sun set on another day of travel, speeches, and mentoring, the boy looked out over a crowd of eager listeners, young and old, and felt a quiet satisfaction, not for the money he had earned, nor for the fame he had received, but for knowing that his journey had shown the world something profound, that talent, courage, and belief could break barriers, inspire change, and leave a legacy far greater than anyone could imagine. And with that knowledge, he smiled, ready to face the next challenge, knowing that the story of his life was far from over, but that its impact would last forever.